Hey there, EB here with our weekly update. It's Thursday, December 5th. I know I say it every week, but so much to talk about today. So let's strap it on, let's get ready, and let's rumble. So much is going on in the world. We'll get to the United States and all the things that are happening, but in Israel, there was a peace plan entered into with Hezbollah that seems to be on shaking ground. The ceasefire, not peace plan, but a ceasefire. And there's been multiple bombings over the past week, and it looks like Israel, if they decide that they're going to negate the ceasefire, it's not only going after Hezbollah, but they're going to be going after Lebanon, the entire country of Lebanon. Second thing is Syria is now seems to be in a civil war. The northern part of Syria with Turkey and the rebels have taken over Aleppo. Bashar Assad has gassed his citizens in the past, although some Americans dispute that. The incoming director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, does dispute that. But the United Nations and the United States confirmed that there was an absolute gassing of their citizens, which is against all treaties throughout the world. It is a brutal way of fighting a war. What is going to happen is Russia now is going to have to get involved in Syria because they back the Assad government. So that is something that is very interesting. South Korea, of all places, the most stable democracy in the Asian Peninsula, somehow declared martial law. The new prime minister, who is more anti-North Korea than the previous prime minister of South Korea, declared martial law, and it was quickly rescinded within 6 hours. But it looks like the government is completely unstable, and there will be impeachment proceedings. And we need a very stable South Korea because South Korea is our partner in the Asian Peninsula. We have a ton of troops there, over I think 70,000 troops to deal with the threat of North Korea and China. So that is something that is very concerning. Ukraine heated up this week. It heated up because Vladimir Putin proposed a budget for Russia in the incoming year and dedicated almost 40% of the money that is going to be allocated is going to be to the defense of the country and specifically to the war in Ukraine. Right now, Russia smells blood. They're losing upwards to 40,000 soldiers a day. 40,000 soldiers a day, which is absolutely extraordinary. They're spending over $3 billion a month. And as I said on previous weeks, we have gotten so much out of helping Ukraine in that war over the last 3 years because the Russian military is completely depleted of soldiers. They're losing them in clips that we didn't even lose during the Vietnam War, approaching like World War II status. And specifically, their arsenal is completely depleted, that they've had to go to North Korea to buy weapons. So Zelensky, who is the prime minister of Ukraine, announced that he would participate in some peace plan discussions or discussions to end the war. And he proposed that Russia hold the ground that they have gotten in Ukraine, which is about 20% of the country, not advance any further, and that that disputed land will be subject to further diplomacy and negotiation in the years to come, and that Ukraine be put on a track to be admitted to NATO. So that is an interesting concession on the part of Zelensky. I think he's very worried about what Trump is going to do in the incoming administration. Biden is allocating as much funding as he can do before his term ends, and he is giving a ton of weapons to Ukraine, and they are driving a lot of those weapons into Russia. So that's going to be interesting in months to come. So we have, significant unrest throughout the world, which is very nervous. The Middle East obviously is a powder keg all the time, but it seems like the fuse is lit there. So that is something that I'm pretty concerned about. Turning home now, I think the news of the week was the presidential pardon that was given by Joe Biden to his son, Hunter Biden. I certainly do understand why Joe Biden, as a father, would want to give a pardon to his son. I do think that the crimes that he was charged and convicted of are normal crimes that never, ever go to trial. Misrepresenting something on a gun application is a misdemeanor at worst. You pay a fine and it's over with. So I think it was politically motivated in the sense that they wanted to show an even hand because all of the outcry of the cases against Donald Trump. And so I don't fault a father for wanting to pardon his son, but I think it was a horrible thing to do because the president gave his word on multiple occasions, at least 6 or 7 times. He had told the press that he was not going to either give a pardon or clemency to his son, even before the trials and then after the first conviction and then after he pled guilty in September to the California trial, which was on the income tax issue. The pardon, though, went much broader than it should have ever gone because he made it specifically from 2014 forward. And in 2014 was when Hunter Biden was trying to monetize his father's relationship with the world and used his father's name to get on boards and cut business deals that he had no business cutting, was not qualified to. He sat on Burisma Energy Company's board of directors, and he certainly didn't have any background experience or knowledge that would have enabled him to earn that kind of $1 million a year to sit on their board. So it's concerning that Biden did that. I think it will taint his legacy even further. Obviously, losing to Trump will hurt his legacy. The way we got out of Afghanistan will hurt his legacy, and certainly the open borders that he permitted for the last 4 years will absolutely taint his legacy. But this pardon, I think, will be a problem for him historically. I think it will open the gates for Trump to want to pardon the January 6th convicted felons, people who are also under indictment but haven't gone to trial yet. He's called them hostages, which they're not. They're criminals. But I think this is going to give him license to give a lot of pardons to some of those people. Don't forget, in 2020, he gave a pardon to Jared Kushner's father. Jared Kushner is his son-in-law, married to Ivanka. His father is a heavy real estate mogul. And by the way, he just named that Charles Kushner, Jared Kushner's father, to be ambassador to France. But he was convicted in 2005. In fact, former Governor Chris Christie, when he was a United States attorney, was the one who prosecuted him. And what he did was he hired a prostitute to go after his sister's husband, his brother-in-law, to get it on film so that he could take that film and go to his sister to blackmail her to prevent her from testifying against him in a criminal trial. It was a cowardly thing to do, a horrible thing to do. He was convicted. Chris Christie said it was despicable, but somehow Donald Trump tried to pardon him. But this is the first time a sitting president actually used a pardon to benefit a family member or a son. I mean, Bill Clinton pardoned his brother Roger Clinton, Hillary's brother Roger Clinton. Yes, I believe so. Or it was his brother, Roger Clinton. It was Roger Clinton. It was Bill's brother. He did that, but this is first where a father did this to a son. The next thing is the worst pardon, I think, of all time was done by Bill Clinton also, where he pardoned Mark Risch, who was a tax cheat that owed about $40 million of taxes. And before he was able to be caught, went to Switzerland and lived out his life. His wife, Denise Risch, was a big Democratic donor and lived in America. She was one of these high society Long Island folks. And Bill Clinton gave him a pardon on the way out. Some people often talk about Ronald Reagan's pardons that he gave in the Iran-Contra affair to Caspar Weinberger, as well as to Oliver North. But I don't think nothing compares to what Joe Biden did. They're also talking about giving pardons now, that he will give a pardon, advance pardon, to a lot of people who have been threatened to be charged with criminal crimes, whether it's Nancy Pelosi or her husband, Adam Schiff, the new senator from California, or Liz Cheney, the former House member. One, I don't think people want those pardons. I do understand why he wants to give them, because these people are governmental employees. They earn a salary. They're not multimillionaires, and they're going to be ground up with lawyers charging $1,000 an hour legal fees to appear before Congress, appear before grand juries, ultimately if they're charged, to go to a criminal court. But they would have to basically, if they accept the pardon, they're basically saying, well, I must have done something wrong. And I think it'll be a win for Donald Trump, because he will be able to promote, hey, look, she had to accept, or he had to accept a pardon because of their obvious guilt. I think some lower level employees in the Department of Justice would accept a pardon and people in the media, because the cost of attorney's fees will absolutely bankrupt somebody in these type of investigations. So it'll be interesting. What I think a smarter thing to do would be to go to the big Democratic donors and tell them to start a pool of money of, let's say, $5 million, $10 million, and those legal fees can be used to pay people that may be charged by the incoming United States Attorney General, Pam Bondi, or if somebody like Kash Patel gets in the FBI, if he starts investigating, because he said last week that the first thing he was going to do would be closing the FBI building in Washington and opening it up as a deep state museum, and then he wanted to prosecute the people that came after Trump, including people in the media. And if you start prosecuting people in the media, then we really do turn into an autocratic dictatorial state, because the press is the only thing, the fourth estate as they're called, is the only thing that keeps us free in a democracy. Pardons are meant for people that are charged and convicted historically, serve their time, or exhibit rehabilitation and act in a contrite manner, that they deserve a pardon. I'm not sure it would be beneficial to do these advanced pardons, but I certainly understand their concern. What I understand, though, is that there is a real fear on a lot of people who are serving in the government right now that Donald Trump is going to come into office on January 20th and really start to go after people. And from a personal standpoint, I understand why he would want to do that, because he feels that, the government was in a lawfare way of coming after him in all these different cases on the federal and state level, and he really feels like he was persecuted. And the guy stood tall. You got to give it to him. But if you look at what is going on in the country right now, there's only a one-person majority in the House of Representatives. They only have, the Republicans, a one number lead seat, where they have more than the Democrats, which is 5 seats less than what the Republicans had last term. Now, there's going to be some special elections in the spring because of some of the House members that have been chosen to go in the cabinet, but it's going to be very difficult for Mike Johnson to govern and cut deals, because there's still the Freedom Caucus that refuses to go along with any budgetary negotiations that won't include massive spending cuts. The interesting thing is, I sent out a tweet yesterday, and wasn't meant to be provocative. It was meant to have discussion about really where our country is right now in terms of the type of people we're choosing as leaders, not just in the presidency, but people who are going to govern very important agencies like Department of Defense, which is the largest governmental regulatory division other than Social Security. It's the second largest line item on our budget with over 200,000 employees. And, Pete Hegseth, who's going through some significant difficulties, and we'll talk about those, is being put in charge simply because, one, he's a conservative Republican, two, he served in the military. His background is really spotty. Yes, he served in the military and served with incredible valor and incredible distinction, but he has not been a four-star general, someone who was leader of, let's say, the Central Command in Europe or in Asia or in the Middle East, where you're in charge of hundreds of thousands of troops. What he did is he was head of two nonprofit military veteran organizations that raise money. One, he raised $8 million. The other, he raised $16 million. But in each one of those, he left at a time when they were running in the red. They were losing money despite bringing in all that money. There are also allegations of rampant and repeated alcohol usage, not only when he was with these nonprofit groups, but even since 2014, where he's been with Fox News, both as a contributor and then on the weekly morning panel. He was written up and taken to HR for a Christmas party and also a wedding of one of the Fox News producers, where he got so ossified drunk that they were worried that he was going to pass out in the bathroom. And he's acknowledged that he's had some alcohol issues. And, putting aside the sexual assault allegations, that's he said, she said, and there's, the woman can't speak because she received a lot of money and there's a non-disclosure agreement. The issue of alcoholism and the issue of running these organizations not in a profitable manner are really relevant issues, so much so that they've concerned enough that Jody Ernst, the senator from Iowa, who is being touted as a replacement if he can't make it through the Senate confirmation process, has said that she's not sure she can vote for him. Mike Rounds, the senator from South Dakota or North Dakota, he also expressed problems. And then Lindsey Graham yesterday said these allegations were disturbing, but amazingly this morning, which is typical Lindsey cowardly style, came out this morning and said, no, I don't have any concerns. Well, what happened is last night he probably got a phone call from Trump or somebody who was close to him and said, look, you're going to lose access to Donald Trump if you don't go and recant what you said yesterday. But the point is, these are serious allegations, so serious that he's making promises to some of the senators as he's meeting with them this week that he will not drink alcohol again. And that's a real problem. When you have to make a promise that you won't drink alcohol, that kind of insinuates that you do have an alcohol issue. And so I sent out this tweet, and I knew it was going to be provocative. I knew it was going to elicit a lot of responses, and about 19,000 people saw it on X, and I've had over 120 responses. And I said, part of the problem with where we are right now is that at least half our country is not able to compare these current appointed designated cabinet officials for these various departments. Obviously, they're not approved yet, but they're appointed. We have to be able to show and compare these people, the Tulsi Gabbards, the Pete Hegseths, the Matt Gaetzes, the Bobby Kennedy, and certainly Kash Patel. We have to compare these historically to other cabinet officials that we are familiar with in our lifetime. And those would be like Caspar Weinberger, Donald Regan, who was Treasury Secretary for Ronald Reagan, Ed Meese, who was Attorney General, Jim Baker, Colin Powell, Condoleezza Rice, Madeleine Albright. These are cabinet people that have an intellectual curiosity that you may not disagree, you may not agree with their political beliefs, but they are historically well-read. Their understanding of the world, they are very serious people. The people that Trump, a lot of them that he's promoting right now, have no policy ideas. Their whole idea is to launch a hand grenade and blow up departments, terminate them, prosecute people because they have differing beliefs, or prosecuting the media. You know, the Senate used to have people of the Republican Democratic beliefs, but they would negotiate. It was considered the world's greatest deliberative body. And there are no policy proposals. You don't hear any of these officials putting forth, well, this is what I want to do with healthcare. Here's a way that we're going to deal with prescription drugs. Here's what we're going to do for employee benefit plans. It's only about tearing down, tearing down. There really is no proposals, and you don't hear about some pretty interesting legislation being proposed. It's all about, well, we're just going to protect our country. We're going to unleash the military. We're going to start a trade war. And so when I went to my kids to talk about, well, what do you know about Condoleezza Rice? What do you know about Ed Meese? What do you know about Jim Baker? And what do you know about Henry Kissinger? They don't know anything. And that's why a lot of people today are unable to compare these woefully deficient candidates for these very important department head positions. So it's really interesting. And I got a lot of personal insults and personal attacks, and I just wanted to debate. I'm not interested in insulting anybody's intelligence, or it's not that I don't have respect for their beliefs, but we really don't have to resort to name calling. So that was an interesting thing. This week also, the Trump administration finally agreed to doing FBI background checks on these people. And that's what happens when you don't do FBI background checks on people like Matt Gaetz and Pete Hegseth. This week, Trump also fired his newly appointed White House counsel. He had named somebody as a White House counsel. Well, it turned out that the MAGA contingent didn't like him, and so he reassigned that attorney to being deputy counsel on this new DOJA, Department of Governmental Accountability, where Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are going to run this, which is not really a cabinet position. And he named as his new White House counsel the chief attorney for his reelection campaign. His chief of staff did not like the person that he named before. She was away on vacation when he named her. So that's interesting. Well, this week, Trump did agree to an FBI check, and that's important because the FBI has resources that a normal private security company that does background checks can't get. And we're seeing what happens to these candidates. And, Trump always touts himself as, oh, I know the best, I know the brightest, I know how to hire. Well, it's going to turn out that he's probably going to lose not only Matt Gaetz, he's going to lose Hegseth at Department of Defense. Kash Patel is never, ever going to be the head of the FBI, not with his background and some of the things that he has said and lied about, being the chief prosecutor in Benghazi investigation. He was not. He lied about being born in Queens like Donald Trump was, where he was born on Long Island to some very wealthy parents. So he's not going to go through. So Trump is choosing people, and it kind of shows that he doesn't really hire great. He certainly knows how to fire great, but contrary to what he says, he may not know how to hire great. So I'm glad they're going to be doing FBI. I'm glad that the senators are not going to, doesn't look like are going to do these recess appointments. And what's going to happen is they're going to have to go through the full Senate confirmation process. This week, everybody but Donald Trump signed the ethic pledge in his administration. So that should be a telltale sign on what may be to come, that Trump does not intend to sign that ethics pledge because he intends to do business with the government, with his own businesses. You know, usually presidential candidates put their businesses in blind trust and let somebody else run them, a trustee. Trump didn't do that in his first term, and he's certainly not going to do it in the second term. Really sad day yesterday. The United Health CEO, Brian Thompson, was assassinated and gunned down in New York City by a masked shooter. The shooter previous to the shooting was in Starbucks. He had a face mask on. He shot him. The bullets had some writings on them about, I think about, you know, different things. His wife had said, Brian Thompson's wife said that he had been subject to some death threats. He and a couple of insiders at United Health had sold almost $100 million of stock over the past month at a time when they knew that the stock was going to drop. It's the first time he has sold any of his stock since being appointed. In 2020, he had 400,000 employees under his watch. He was executed. The assassin ran, then got on a bike and went in Central Park. A photograph was released today, I think, without the mask on. So I suspect that they're going to close in on this. I don't think it was a terrorist incident. I think this was personal for how he ran United Health because of these messages on the bullet casings. But it's really, really scary what's going on in New York City. I'm not going to go there. As I said last week, I'd rather go to Chicago, and I feel like I can get the same entertainment, the same experience of being in a big city, great food. The only thing you don't have really is the theater district, but I'd rather be safe and have my wife safe. Interesting, the girl from Hawaii, Kobayashi, her father, as you know, remember, committed suicide last week, jumped off a parking garage in LA. She was flying from Hawaii on November 11th to California, and then was going to go to California to New York. She never did. The father and the family thought that she was abducted or became part of a cult. It turns out that she voluntarily bought a bus ticket and went to Mexico. They think it's because she wanted to marry somebody from Argentina. So it's really sad, really, really sad that the father took his own life thinking that somebody had abducted his daughter. And we still don't know the full story on that. So that'll be interesting to come. How about the stowaway lady, the lady on the airplane, like Catch Me If You Can? She stowed herself away on an airplane to France. I didn't know if you can ever do that. I don't know how she would get past the gate. She hid on the plane. Now she's coming back. So that's really interesting thing. Bitcoin hit $100,000. First time it broke the $100,000 mark. Clearly, Bitcoin may have a real place in the new Trump administration in the months to come. Donald Trump is, with his sons, is starting a Bitcoin trading platform. Also, Elon Musk, who has the ear of the president, he's starting into Bitcoin. So it's going to be interesting to see how that develops over the next couple of years. I frankly don't understand it. I've never bought any Bitcoin or traded it, but my son has, and certainly a lot of my friends have. I just don't really trust it. I don't feel like you can get your money, but evidently you can. You can have a cold storage. You can have your own wallet where you have your password, and you hear these horrible stories of somebody who, hit it big but can't find their password, or they can't find their coins. Interesting, there was a Supreme Court argument this week, a very serious one, where the Supreme Court, I believe, will uphold a Tennessee law that says that you can't offer transgender medical services or prescription drug services to teenagers under the age of like 18 or 16. I totally agree with that law. I know I didn't have the level of maturity when I was 16 years old to want to deal with gender reassignment and really understand the long-term implications of that. So I think without parental involvement at that time, even if you have parental involvement, I don't think it's the right thing to do. I think these kids need to wait until they're at least 18 years old before they do that. So I tend to be in agreement with the Tennessee law as well as what the Supreme Court may do. And I've already stated my belief about transgenders participating in female sports. I don't think it's right. I believe they should have every right in the world in education and health insurance and not be discriminated against. But to compete against women, it's just not something that is fair for women that train their whole lives. So that's one thing I believe in. The Daniel Penny murder trial is going on in New York City right now. That's another case that I think should have never been brought for prosecution by Melvin Bragg, the New York district attorney. I think that Daniel Penny was helping out a lot of people that were very scared on that train from the guy that clearly was mentally ill and was threatening to hurt people. He put him in a chokehold and ended up killing him. I just don't think it's murder. I don't think he should have been criminally charged for that. We also have another bodega owner that shot somebody similar to the one 2 years ago that used a knife. That person was originally charged and then finally exonerated. This person was charged, and I think there's a groundswell movement in New York City that it's enough already charging these store owners for people that are coming in and robbing their stores. So I'm hopeful that Daniel Penny does not get convicted of murder. Next thing is O.J. Simpson's bodyguard claims that he has a recording where O.J. admitted to murdering Nicole Smith and Andrew Goldman. No surprise there. I don't think there's anybody in this world that doesn't believe that O.J. actually killed them. It would be interesting to hear it. We'll see if it happened. Certainly he got away with murder, but the rest of his life he was a pariah. So he ended up paying the price, not the price of death or being in prison. He was in prison for 11 years for the sports memorabilia, but he should have served a long term for killing Ron Goldman, not Alex Goldman, Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown. The DUI bride trial that was scheduled to start in Charleston this week. You remember last year there was the girl who was a Kamansky who was driving 65 miles an hour in a 25-mile zone and ran down the lovely couple who had just gotten married and were heading out after their vows. And she was DUI. She was 3 times over the legal limit. Her trial was underway, and she ended up getting 25 years concurrent sentence, 15 on one and 10 on the other. It looks like she'll serve 15. Concurrent is you serve it at the same time. Consecutive means you would serve each sentence. So I actually had been involved in that case. I represented one of the owners of the bar establishments, not the bar owner, but the owner of the building, with my partner Ronnie Richter. And we were involved in a situation where the young bride's mother was trying to annul the marriage because her daughter and Eric Hutchinson did not consummate their marriage. They didn't have intercourse, and that used to be, it's a very antiquated law. And until you consummated your marriage, you were considered married, even though you may have had taken the vows and you got your license. So that was a lawsuit that was destined to fail, and I was involved tangentially in that as well. That's a very sad case. Pete Hegsleff, his mother wrote that letter, which is really a sad letter for a mother to have to write about a son. She wrote that he was an alcoholic. He's the guy that's was named for the Department of Defense head. Fox News contributor, said that he's a womanizer. He abuses women. Of course, she apologized and tried to revoke the letter after she wrote it. But for a mother to write that kind of letter of a son, it's very sad and tragic. And I don't think any mother would write that if it wasn't true. So that's another issue that's up there right now before the senators. Trump had said that he had an excellent meeting with Claudia Sheinbaum, who is the new president of Mexico. He said that he's worked it out with her, that there's not going to be any more undocumented immigrants coming over the border after he becomes president. She didn't quite say that. There was a mixed message there. Trump said that the border's closed and he tried to claim victory. She is not agreeing to closing the border, but I do agree that she is going to try and stem the tide of illegal immigration because of the threat of the tariffs. He also met with Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, who was also threatened with 25% tariffs. Trudeau came and bended the knee to Trump at Mar-a-Lago. Nothing was agreed to at that time. The other problem I'm seeing in Ukraine, though, is even though Russian soldiers are dying, over 200,000 Ukrainian soldiers have deserted. So they're tired after fighting 3 years of this war. And I think Russia is starting to see that, and Russia is putting its foot on the throat of Ukraine. So that's a problem. Looking at football, Josh Allen, I believe, is the absolute MVP of the season. The Bills destroyed the team they played Sunday night in the snow on Monday Night Football. I think that Saquon Barkley is probably close in the MVP race with Josh Allen. I think the Bills have enough this year that they could beat the Chiefs when they finally meet them in the playoffs. There's no question that Jaden Daniels is the Rookie of the Year. In any other year, it would be Bo Nix, who's on a 6-game winning streak with the Denver Broncos as their quarterback. He played for Auburn and a lot of different schools, including Oregon. And Sean Payton is doing a great job in making him the quarterback. Sean Payton looks like he's a pretty good coach for getting rid of Russell Wilson so that he can bring in Bo Nix as a rookie. The 49ers, by far, the biggest disappointment in the NFL right now. Wouldn't surprise me if Kyle Shanahan leaves the 49ers after this year, and he's going to have his pick of the litter of jobs because he's one of the top 3 or 4 coaches in the NFL. Looks like that he may go to the Chicago Bears if he's going to leave. Mike Vrabel and Bill Belichick are waiting in the wings to be the next coach. Also, the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions is desired by everybody. The Denver dentist who is in murder, accused of killing his wife, he claims that she tried to commit suicide. He also put out a hit on the lead investigator on the case. His lawyer resigned from the case, and this is the quote that he gave in his motion to be relieved. He said, "The client insists upon me taking actions that I consider repugnant or which I have a fundamental disagreement." We're starting to see some bomb threats and swatting on some of these cabinet selections. Swatting is when you send the police out and say that a crime is happening at their house. This is unacceptable and should not happen. Dolph Lundgren, who played in Apollo Creed, he was the Russian boxer in Rocky, Ivan Drago. He is cancer-free. Nobody ever knew he had cancer. He has been fighting it for 4 years. One of the smartest actors out there. He has a master's degree in chemical engineering. You would never know it. The egg lady juror in the Alex Murdaugh trial, she has made another motion to reconsider with the Supreme Court because she wants the transcripts and the records released when Judge Clifton Newman discharged her from the jury. P. Diddy has been denied bail for the 3rd time. So it does look like he's going to remain in jail in New York City in that Brooklyn jail until his trial, which is scheduled, I think, for late spring. Daniel Jones left the Giants and went to the Vikings. Blake Snell, who was a former Cy Young winner, went to the Dodgers. I think also I'm worried about Elon Musk, what he's doing. He's starting to publish names of people who hold positions in the government that he wants to eliminate in his new Doge position. I think it's okay to name, here's a title or a department that I want to eliminate or a job I want to eliminate, but you shouldn't use the people's name because now these people are getting death threats. Cooper Flagg and Con Nopel for Duke are two of the most exciting basketball players in college basketball today. Cooper Flagg, these are two freshmen. Cooper Flagg's averaging over 20 points a game. As you recall, before the Olympics, he played in the other team against the new Dream Team that won the gold medal in the Olympics. They said he is pro ready right now. Auburn lost to Duke. Creighton beat Auburn. Excuse me. Creighton beat Auburn. Creighton also beat UConn. UConn lost 3 games in the Hawaii tournament over Thanksgiving. Creighton also beat Kansas, who is undefeated. So the Georgia Tech game last week was one of the most exciting football games I've ever seen. I believe that USC belongs in the college football playoffs. They beat Clemson last week. If Clemson found their way into the championship game, which they did because Syracuse beat Miami, if Clemson beats SMU, they're going to go to the college football playoffs because they have an automatic bye, and they are not as good as South Carolina. Drake and Kendrick Lamar are going to court because Drake contends that when you go to series or you go on Amazon, you go on Echo, and you ask for these playlists on Pandora. If you ask for a certain playlist, Kendrick Lamar's songs come up instead of Drake based on the algorithms. So it used to be that these OGs would gun each other down like Biggie Smalls and Dre and Tupac Shakur. Now they're suing each other in court. Almost finished. Susan Smith, I just heard, she was going to go on Dancing with the Stars if she got parole a couple weeks ago, and we know that was denied. So she just doesn't get it. Even if she got parole, that woman should have just gone off into the sunset, not said a word, not done anything. I think what hurt Amanda Knox all those years ago was she became too public. So Susan Smith, I'm glad she didn't get parole. Yes, Casey O'Dell, the egg lady, is exhausting. She doesn't stop, and so is her attorney, Joe McCullough. He's exhausting too, in reference to what he's done in the Murdaugh case and how many different sides of the road he's been on for different people. And finally, I have my first book signing this weekend in Beaufort. Looking forward to it at the bookstore in downtown Beaufort. There's a big festival there. I will be there from 12 to 2. Bring your books. I will sign them. I will give you a message. We can take photographs. We will also have books there for you to purchase. My wife Renee is going to be there, so I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye, Casey.